Hello, and a joyous welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that have led them to where they are today. Right, welcome to break room number 5. Gosh, 5. We've done 5 of these now. And this break room is focusing on recruitment and the recruitment industry because it's a bit of a bee in my bonnet. So, that's what this break room is about. And without further ado, I will introduce you to Nicki. Hi, Nicki.
Hi, Michelle.
Could you tell the lovely listener what it is you do for a living?
I am a recruitment consultant for the creative industries.
Brilliant.
And that will cover everything from designers and art workers, marketers, project managers, copywriters, PR, comms, for anything these days.
Basically,
under the
really,
creative umbrella.
just all the really flitty people out there.
Yeah. I was interviewing candidates, going to client meetings, and going to companies to get a feel for them and what they needed, and just building up that rapport.
Because in many ways back then it was very different. The recruiter, or that middle recruiter role, was really quite poignant, wasn't it? Because you heavily vetted them, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
So to the point that if you got past that cut, you were generally in like the final handful, weren't you?
Yeah.
Whereas opposed to like nowadays, I guess it's all more. Well, you're going to probably tell me in a minute, but you just feel like you're just in a pool, and you have no idea how many hundreds or thousands.
That's
are
right.
in that pool.
And I think sort of things have evolved because there's more. A lot of people within businesses that are recruiting are doing a lot more themselves. There's LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn looking themselves, and obviously trying to cut out the recruiter.
Yeah.
And a lot of recruiters, and I think this has been there for years, but a lot of recruiters do get a bad rep, and we're tarred with the same brush as you're just in it for the money, and you'll send over 20 CVs just to make up the numbers.
Right.
Whereas that's not what we were ever about, and that's not what I'm about now.
But some
either.
were, and they gave it a bad name.
And I think that's why it put off a lot of people using recruiters. They found it time wasting, whereas we're ready to save you time finding the right people.
Well, yeah, if you're doing, like you say, if you're doing that early part.
Yeah.
So when, I guess, did you start to see that shift happening then, where, because like you say, sort of end of the 90s, early noughties, the recruitment agent, that was key, wasn't it? Or that's how I remember it, certainly. I don't remember ever really, I mean, I guess for certain roles, but it was like you always really went through a recruiter to get a job. So when did you start to see that shift?
I'd probably say about 10 years ago, and a lot of change and being more avenues, I think, for businesses or the hiring managers to find their own people.
And LinkedIn, like you say, LinkedIn suddenly becoming really huge.
Yeah. But I think it's a tool that I use, and it is great.
Yeah.
But also, I think working with a recruiter, I know that person, I know, who I'm putting forward to you, and I've done the initial vetting, as it were, and making sure they're the right fit for you without wasting your time, trawling LinkedIn yourself.
Yeah.
That to me. I think the last 12 months have been tough, just generally for the industry. And as I say, it's not great, but it's great talking to other people and hearing the same thing. Because you start, things start to go a little bit quiet, and then you think, is it me? What's happening?
Yeah.
So I think towards the end of last year and earlier this year, things did quieten off, but have started to pick up again. So.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, actually, one of my questions was going to be, it's a big question for you and one you can't possibly answer, but I don't know if you've considered it, what the impact of AI is having on the creative industry, because of course now, writers, AI can write stuff now, can't they? And in fairness, AI can design some amazing fiction stuff.
Yeah.
So of course the creative industry, and I know this from people I know in the creative industry, it's just a bit of a...
I think copywriters is something I've noticed more from what I recruit for, because in, 2021, 2022, I was recruiting a lot of copywriters. I got a lot of freelance copywriters, and copywriting was probably the biggest requirement for me, the biggest request.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, it's probably over a year since I've actually had a copywriting brief.
And I bet that's AI.
Yeah. And it's hard because,
scourge.
again, you know, the people you're talking to, or was talking to on a regular basis, you know, great candidates who are now shouting out for work, you know, and everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah, because people just, what you've now got is those in-house teams just using ChatGPT and all this kind of stuff, haven't you?
Yeah. So I have noticed it from a copywriting perspective more. Not so much design yet, but I'm sure it will change.
Yeah. Well, also the scary thing is how they create AI. They do all these create imagery, and you then go, well, what's that going to affect? How's that going to affect like photographers and that kind of stuff? Because you can almost just AI can generate imagery from merging a million photos together, can't it? It's just absolutely
scary.
bonkers. One topic I really did want to talk to you about, because it's a bee I've got in my bonnet, but it's definitely something that this brand and this channel needs to, I want to focus more on. And obviously what it was, almost the inception behind it was about the recruitment industry. There's a couple of things there, so where do I start for this? What, I guess, my bee in my bonnet is, and it's definitely not you, but I think these in-house recruiters, I feel like the recruitment industry is so boring and cliche. Like people will only ever recruit from industry.
Yeah.
From the same industry.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so, because ultimately it's forcing people to always stick to the same industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than, and it's like no one's ever willing to go, and I get it, some respect, they want you to come in and hit the ground running, I get that, but equally, it's just getting the same, you're just going to get what you've always got, you know, and giving someone a couple of months to learn. If they're bright, they can get their head around an industry
and they
really
can bring
quite.
something
Well,
fresh.
look at what you've described. You've completely changed careers and stuff, and you can get your head around it. You're made a director in a year, so like, I just find, and I guess that annoys me.
Yes.
So that's one of my things I'd like to discuss with you. And then the second thing is, you know, the experience that I had of being in my mid-40s and then trying to find work and applying for jobs that I knew I was really qualified for. I knew I'd got the experience for them, and just not even getting a look in.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, which by all means shoot this down, said, I think the only thing is parking the industry bit for a minute, is your age and the fact that you're a woman in your mid-40s, and the problem is, like with anything now, you'll be going up against, say you're going for like a head of role, you'll be up against even some people in their 20s for that kind of role, but definitely people in their 30s, and you're this. One of the break room chats I did with an ex-boss of mine said, what you may find is, or what she says, you know, insecure bosses don't want to recruit strong women. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that feeling of you're less controllable because you're confident in yourself. You're less. They're like, oh, you're a bit older, so I can't. So I don't know. I've just bombarded you with a load of information. Let's talk about the age thing first. Then. Do you think that's a thing, or have I imagined the whole thing?
No, I think with a lot of companies it is. And I mean, you touched on these days, you know, a lot of 20-somethings are in very senior roles.
Yes.
And that is happening more and more recently.
One of the few people I've been chatting to, in some respects, young people, don't quite have, like, you know when we were like, oh, we've got to stay somewhere at least like 2 or 3 years on your CV. They're not so bothered about that. They'll stay somewhere for a year and they progress quicker
and get more experience
because
elsewhere.
they're moving around and they're almost getting little promotion. So like you say, so by the time they're then 28, they're ahead of because they've almost strategically left because they've not got the same focus on it. Now whether they're getting the pay.
And that's the other thing, they are.
Are they?
Yeah, in finding people is, I know you're not shortlisting for a 28-year-old, you're shortlisting for the experience, But I will perhaps be looking at people that, if I'm looking on LinkedIn for somebody
Yeah.
and they are 27, 28 or, sort of late 20s, early 30s, the expectations I would think that person would have based on the roles I'm shortlisting for, and then I'll reach out to somebody and say, okay, and they'll go, yeah, I'm interested, tell me more, what's the salary, and I'll give them, it's X salary, and I'm already on far more than that as it is.
Really?
Yeah. And that's what,
Because they've done this strategic, they've played the game,
Yeah.
maybe way better than we ever did.
Yeah, and they were already earning that money.
How interesting. But then am I too far the other way then, whereby then I have too much? Do you think I then, not too much experience, because that sounds right. I don't at all mean it like that.
No, you're right.
But actually they're then going, what we want is someone in this sort of mouldable kind of...
Yeah.
So that maybe
you're
it's
too
that...
experienced.
I'm too experienced.
Yeah.
So that 30 to 40 window, even though... So then that's tricky. So the 30 to 40 window is probably the magic employment window then, isn't it? But... for women, it's then tricky because then surely employers then go, but is she going to want to go and have kids? So, am I allowed to ask you? And feel free to. We can always cut this out if you don't want to. What proportion of men to women do you think you place?
I would probably say it's on a par, if not women higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
How interesting. But in that window though, in the sort of 30 to 40 window.
Yeah. And I think it is probably a similar amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think having children holds... Are you talking about freelance or permanent?
Permanent, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do know there are clients out there that won't consider people of a certain age because of children. And some clients will even turn around to me and say, I'm looking for a 25 to 30 year old, or I'm looking for somebody 40 plus, or I'm looking for a male because my team is too female heavy, or vice versa.
I guess that the other thing is that the women that I know that have, had kids, don't get me wrong, I had kids and went back to work, but I had kids, went back to work, and in many ways have always then stayed. Like, they've just stayed where they are, and they've been there for then 10, 15 years, 20 years, but never really progressed. They've had the kids, maybe gone down to 4 days, and then not really progressed. Anyway, I know some women that still have, I'm not at all saying that, but as a rule of thumb, for whatever reason, the women that I know that have had children have just kind of, they've got to a point, had their kids, and they've just kind of flatlined thereafter, which obviously is a bit of a nightmare from a recruitment perspective because they don't go anywhere. They don't go anywhere. But it's always those middle management positions. Yes. They've got to a point, had kids, and then even probably for themselves potentially thought, I can't possibly put myself any further because I've got to, because as we still know, women are still the main carers for the children, even if the husband's really active and supportive, whatever. As the chat I was having the other day, it's women that have to organise everything and do everything. Really, no disrespect meant to me. Yeah. So in many ways, women hold themselves back as much as men do. And how do you find? Because somebody I follow on TikTok, I've started following lately, and she has a massive bit, and she's almost trying to raise awareness for. So what she's got to be in her bonnet about, and what she rants about, are employers that post. It's almost how the recruitment thing goes along. So it's like she doesn't like the fact that people make you put your salary expectations down without ever sharing a salary. Yeah. That is massive now. Yeah. Because I think the amount of jobs I've applied for where there's no salary and I have to then take a punt. And I reckon probably 9 times out of 10 I've completely written myself off because I've been so far off. Because the ultimate thing is because salaries aren't displayed anymore in job ads, no one has a feel for what job salaries are. You're asking someone to kind of go, okay, well, based on my experience and what I think I could bring to the table. So, and that's a really common thing about salaries.
Yeah. I would say 50% at least of my jobs don't have salaries on.
Because they don't want
me, and that's the frustrating thing because people that are looking for jobs have a go at me because I don't have a salary on there.
Yeah.
But I'm not allowed to advertise the salaries.
No.
And the reasons most of the time are, because we've got people internally that are doing a similar job, we don't want them to know what we're paying the new people. Probably because they're underpaying the people that we've already got.
Of course, I hadn't thought about it.
And that's half the battle. So it's okay, we're looking at, and they'll give me a rough idea or a ballpark of what they're going to pay, but they won't let me put that on the advert.
I know you have a little life in your head. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life.
So I know when I am looking at people or people who are applying to me, on my website or on LinkedIn, I know if people are applying, I know what to be looking at. But I can't put the salary on.
So employers have been burnt by... Because it's just the common thing, isn't it? You always have to pay more to get new people.
Yeah.
Because exactly that point, those people that have been there, or like I was just saying, these women that I know that have been there forever...
are on the same salary, have had no increase, are doing the same job, that a new person will come in and be getting a lot more. Yeah. And that is why, because it causes ruptions internally. We don't want our staff to know, what we're paying the new people. Well, that's not my problem. I need to be getting the right people. I say I'll get a budget.
Yeah.
And then the frustrating thing is, somebody will apply to the job I've got advertised. They're looking for a lot more than what my client is wanting to pay.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a conversation with them, and then I'll get it in the next. Well, it didn't say that in your advert, and if you advertise a salary, I understand. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I'm on your side.
You're in a real tricky situation. You're on the receiving end of the wrath, aren't you? In some respects. Well, also, and the other thing she's got a real bee in her bonnet about, that she rants about a lot, which is just really woolly, lazy job descriptions that are posted, that you kind of there go, particularly when it comes to like the benefits. Oh, we'll give you, it's a great place to work, and
you can have fruit for breakfast.
Yeah, and all this kind of stuff now, and it's kind of like, why don't you just sort of like, do you find if their employees are just... I mean, what's that about?
You can have a free car parking space and
it's all really woolly stuff, or it's like psychological benefits rather than actual tangible benefit.
Yeah, because there are no benefits.
A
lot
great
of the time
culture.
These days.
It's a great. You'll get to experience a great culture, and
because you don't get anything in this day and age. And I think that's the other thing. They try to big it up that we are a good business and we look after our staff, but there are no bonuses, there are no real rewards for working there. It's just
because
it's a job.
We're not valuing loyalty.
Yeah.
Because we think you're going to leave, and then you are probably going to leave in a year or two.
Yeah.
So we're not going to invest in any perks.
Yeah.
My God, the whole world has changed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is, again, in which case then that goes back to my point that the whole recruitment industry is geared, I feel like it's geared for younger people then.
Yeah.
Because actually, like, people like me of my age are looking for those packages. We're looking, because that's what we know.
Yes,
that's what I've always worked with.
And you were talking earlier about, part-time and, ladies going back after having the children, maybe wanting 3 or 4 days a week. I will say that the majority of people that are looking for part-time that I have are ladies.
They are always women, aren't they? And those roles are few.
And it is, for whatever reason, mainly because they've taken time out to have children and are now returning back to work.
But the children aren't that old. No. They still need some flexible...
Yeah.
Now, okay, you can then answer that question, because me and another friend were chatting, and we were like, and they were going, but part-time roles. I'm like, God dust, you can't find a part-time role. And in fairness, that's always kind of been a little bit the case, because let's face it, employees do want a lot of people. I get it, they want the consistency. Have part-time roles been replaced by hybrid working? Because nowadays, because when we were chatting, and we almost sort of came up with this again while we were chatting, it was, maybe it's because they're hybrid now, so actually you could take a full-time job, but if it was like hybrid working and within some respects flexi working, then you can still pick your kids up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've only got to be in the office 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
which would be what the part-time job would be.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
2 or 3 days you could do from home and actually still get to an extent.
You can still do your
the
hours and work
flexibility.
around.
So do you think
Yeah.
that's affected? Is
Yeah.
even because so already part-time roles were always gold dust.
Yeah.
But now flexi hybrid roles are further because there's no need for in some respects
No.
for.
That's it, and I think those clients that are offering the flexi work and are offering the hybrid are very flexible. Most of them, they
Yeah.
say we don't mind, as long as somebody is doing the core hours. But
Or
if
say
they
like
need
10
to,
till 4, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
And some even with that, sort of pick up on things maybe when they get home or
Yeah.
7:00, 7 till 8, they can do another
Yeah,
hour if
yeah.
they need to. I think it's industry dependent because I appreciate some jobs you do need to be 9 to 5:30, dependent upon what you're doing and what's needed.
Yeah.
Because if they've got their own clients and their working hours, everyone needs to sort of support their other client or the third party, etc.
Yeah.
So I think some businesses need to be 9 to 5:30.
Yeah.
But I think those that have got the flexibility and appreciate, people do have families and family life.
And do they appreciate it?
Some.
Because it felt like during COVID, that was going to be the only really great thing that came out of COVID, was almost just this flexible working.
Yeah.
We're all going to have much more flexibility. And I know there is still a lot more flexibility because I know, obviously, women used to apply for flexible. Even before COVID, you
Yes,
could apply
yeah,
for flexible
yeah.
working. But
Doesn't
9
mean you-
times
yeah.
out of 10 you didn't get it. Whereas with COVID stuff that became a lot more flexible. But of course, like we said before we even sat down, employers want people back in the offices.
That's it,
don't
and I
they?
think those that are offering flexibility are great, and the flexibility is there. But more and more people are wanting people back on site full time. Will not consider even one day
I know.
hybrid. It's
I
5
can
days
remember
a week on site or
looking at
nothing.
a job that was hybrid, and then when I asked about it, it was like 1 day from home or something. You kind of go, oh gosh, okay, that's not massively hybrid
Yeah.
then, is it?
Yeah.
Because you've got there's 2 things. There's hybrid, which is obviously dual place of work, home or wherever you want to be,
Yeah.
and but the flexi working is hours related,
Yes.
really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
being able to say, well, on this day I'm going to finish at 3 to
Yeah.
pick up my kids.
Yeah.
Then is flexi. So hybrid, I think, is that we've just discovered or just been chatting through, is probably disappearing a bit more,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah.
Due to
Yeah.
is flexible hours still a thing though?
Again, that's probably not as much. It's probably disappearing as well. So I think it has been there, but I think that is starting to become more. Even if it is hybrid, you've still got the set hours, the 9 to 5:30 to work, and people aren't as flexible as they were.
Are there many sort of small independent recruiters like you, do you
I think there are
out
more
there?
now.
Ah.
I don't think there were as many. But
So it
I
was just
also,
big agencies, wasn't
yeah,
it?
I think there are more now because a lot of those big agencies have either gone under
Right.
or people have been made redundant and set up on their own.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing more names that, people advertising things. I think, oh, who are you? So obviously
Yeah.
having a look where they've come from and have, come from other recruiters and for whatever reason have set up on their own.
Interesting. And
So-
is that, do you think that's more women or men?
Yeah,
Or
it's women.
It's definitely women that have-
Yeah. Yeah. So when I'm
Interesting. I
seeing
wonder
jobs
how-
advertised, it's like, who are you?
Do you get young people doing that as well?
Yeah, I was looking at some of the people. I'd say
That have
you-
Done it as a first kind of,
Yes.
been employed as a first maybe and then
Yeah.
second job.
yeah,
And then
Yeah.
decided just to go it alone.
Yeah.
Do you know, because I'm only asking that because when I was looking for some social media support for this, 'cause it's obviously the one thing I'm just, I've not got that expertise. I can, creator and branding I can do, but that kind of expertise is a specialism, isn't it, social? And when I was searching because I wanted a freelance social media person, they were all really young.
yes,
They were
yeah,
all really
Yeah.
young. And I'm there thinking, oh my gosh, you've basically left uni, gone and worked in a social media role for 2 years, 3 years, and have now gone freelance
Yeah.
and doing social media freelance.
Yes. And some have done it straight from uni because they've struggled to get their first job, first industry
Right.
job. They've ended up freelancing for bits and pieces, often through word of mouth.
Because when I
and
was
built
younger,
upon that.
freelancing was what older people did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Almost
Yeah.
like once they've got all that experience, they then kind of just branched out a little bit on their own, particularly in the creative industry that
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, because they just wanted to experiment, try new things, but you almost needed the experience for
Yeah.
freelance.
Now it's a case of, they've struggled with that first job and then just, doing freelance for, family and friends initially, and then word of mouth and, for sort of parents, I don't know, second cousins, friend who, needs some help, and they've built up on it that way. And
I know, and then obviously make some money.
yeah, and then ended up freelancing and not getting a permanent job, but, they've done all right out of it, and I managed to work with some good companies and get some good names on the CV. So
I know.
But a lot of younger people
Are freelancing now.
Yeah.
That's even more depressing, isn't it? Quite frankly. Right, I'm going to let you get back to your busy day. So I'm going to ask you. Well, otherwise I'm just going to keep throwing just windy topics at you. My 3 final questions are always, is there any advice that you would give your younger self? So it could be any version of yourself. You could be really little, you could be at school.
I think maybe if I'd have thought about it, asking more with sort of careers advisors what the options were, rather than just being told. Because I think a lot of the time, it was nursing or secretarial. And
or
there
a doctor. It was
yeah,
really
it wasn't really. So
taxi driver, like bus driver being one. It was just the most bizarre list. Okay, so then second question is advice your older self would give you. So maybe 20 years down the line. What would she say to you
take
now?
more of a break. My parents were always very hard workers. Well, my mum still is. My mum's nearly 80 and she still works part-time.
Does she?
She won't give it up. And I
just
think...
part of who she is.
Yeah. And
Brilliant.
she's always on the go. And I think, my dad, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us. But again, he was always, very hard worker, very committed, putting the hours in. And I take after them both, and I think it was in one of those things of, yes, it's again got me to where I am in my own business, but I think taking a break, rather than just being work a lot of the time, I'd say take a break and travel a bit more.
Yeah, enjoy life a bit more.
Yeah.
Great advice. Wise woman, your older self. Okay, and then the final question is always just some life advice or a mantra to throw out there to anyone.
Look after yourself, I think.
Yeah.
Work hard, but look after yourself as well.
Make time for yourself. And do you think you are good at that?
I think I'm better at it now.
Yeah.
I think when I first started on my own, it was a lot more. I was working a lot longer hours because I needed to make sure it succeeded. But just because you're working and putting the extra hours in and working, 14-hour days, doesn't mean you're going to succeed more than if you were, taking a bit of time for yourself.
The whole work smarter, not hard. Was that the thing? Work smarter, not longer, or
yeah. And I think I'm definitely better now at working smarter.
Yeah, than you were.
Yes.
Power of hindsight, hey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to say thank you very much, Nicki.
Thank you, Michelle.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.thiswomanswork.org. The link is on this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.